This story happened back when I was 12. The experience is still quite traumatic to me, so I do ask that everyone be respectful. When I was 12, me and my cousin Lexi were pretty much neighbors. We lived approximately 5 houses away from each other and spent most of our time together or with our group of neighborhood friends that consisted of about 7 other kids who were both younger and older than us. One activity that we made a habit was going into the woods behind our neighborhood and playing hide and seek. In the summer especially, we did this almost every day, and on this day it was no different. We all gathered up in front of the woods before making our way in and playing hide and seek. Jacob was the oldest boy in our group and was always in charge, which I hated because he would always make me the seeker, but I also put up with because I knew Lexi had a crush on him. This day in question went like all the rest. We met up in our usual spot inside the woods, and Jacob made me be the seeker, and we started our game. This happened all day, with us occasionally stopping to rest and leaving to get lunch and check in with our parents, but we always came back and started a new game. It had gotten super late and everyone was preparing to get ready to go home when Jacob said he wanted to show us something he found while we were playing. We followed Jacob for a bit but realized we were going extremely deep into the woods. When we played hide and seek, we played in this huge section of woods that had plenty of hiding areas. We never went outside of this area because we were told not to by our parents, and we really just didn't know much about the outside areas. Jacob walked us through this new area for about 10 minutes, and the whole time I honestly had a very bad feeling about it. I didn't say anything because I was a kid and didn't want to be called scary or a chicken or anything, so I just kept up with the others. Jacob kept telling us how he found something amazing and how we are going to want to come to his new area every day after we see it. Eventually we came out at this river passage. The river was small and very shallow, but to a group of kids all less than 14 it looked like heaven. We immediately all ran to the river, jumped in and started splashing each other and playing around. This lasted for a few minutes, but after a while I saw Jacob and Lexi looking at something that was on the other side of the river. Me and some of the other kids began to approach them to see what they were looking at, and as we did we heard them talking. "I knew you was a chicken," Jacob said with a laugh. "I am not," she said. "I'm gonna do it. Do what I said," as I looked past them. And that's when I saw this cave-like entrance that kind of reverted under the river. I looked at Lexi and she had this silly grin on her face. "No," I said before grabbing her hand and trying to walk her away. She instantly snatched her hand from me and said she was going to do it. It was a dare and she doesn't back down from dares. I knew it had nothing to do with a dare and she just wanted to impress Jacob, so I told her if she went down there I was telling her mom and dad. She basically shrugged me off before getting down and crawling through the cave. I went right next to the cave and started calling for her, and she immediately called back to me and told me to stop being a chicken and that she wanted to explore. The other kids were basically laughing and cheering her on, but I felt terrified. I just knew something was off. All of a sudden she went out of our sight into a darker area of the cave. She was still talking at this point and telling us how the cave wasn't scary and that we should join her. "It's late," I told her. "We have like 5 minutes to get home or we're gonna be in big trouble." "Fine," I heard her say in an annoyed tone as her footsteps began to come back our way. But all of a sudden we heard them stop and this blood-curdling scream exit the cave, followed by footprints that seemed to be going into the opposite direction. We all stood up and looked at each other. "This isn't funny," Jacob called out to her. "Let's go, Lexi," I said right after trying to hide the shiver in my voice. We both got no answer. Everything had just went silent at this point. We waited for 5 minutes to hear something, then 10 minutes, and then almost 20 before the smaller kids in the group started crying and screaming. We all ran through the woods and back home, where we informed the adults on what happened. The adults followed us back to the spot and we showed them where Lexi had went, but none of them could fit into the small opening and we ended up calling the police for help. We were all anxious the whole time. The adults started to consider that maybe the water from the river also led into the cave somehow and she fell into it. We kept telling them about us hearing her scream and run away, but they just didn't believe us, or they didn't want to believe us. The police came and it took them and a bunch of the dads to open up a space big enough for a few people to fit in. At this point it was super late and me and all of the other kids were sent home. The next day I was hoping to hear something about Lexi, but all I heard was that she was nowhere to be found. There was even no water found in the cave, so her drowning was not a possibility. She had simply vanished. This incident has completely changed the whole dynamic of our neighborhood, even though it has been 7 years. I still have so much guilt for it along with Jacob. He has never been the same since it happened. Anytime Lexi is even brought up or he sees a picture of her, you can see this look of hurt and guilt in his eyes. I don't at all blame Jacob for what happened. He was a kid just like the rest of us. At that age you're not really thinking of huge consequences, but I do wish things would have turned out differently. I miss Lexi a lot. We may have not always gotten along, but she was one of my best friends and life has been hard without her. I wrote this story because I feel like I'm still looking for a happy ending. Anytime I think of Lexi's case, I always say, well, she wasn't found, so maybe she's still out there. We just need to keep looking. And you know, for the average missing person case, I think that's rational. But Lex's case is far from average. As much as I want to believe she's still out there and that there's hope, I know that blood-curdling scream wasn't for nothing and that Lexi will likely never be found.